What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American Politics, back in with a new video. And today, it is time that we finally do the September edition of my 2022 gubernatorial predictions. That is right, folks. It's finally time for the September edition. It's prediction week, your favorite time of the year, month, whatever. And, yeah. Now, before I forget, of course, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share it to friends, hit that little bell, and yes. Of course, go follow the mysterious Twitter account in the description down below. And, yeah. Also join the channel. That is right, folks. For just 10 cents a day, you could join Real American Politics. I recommend you do it. And, yeah. Alright, no more promotion bullshit. None of that. It is time we finally get into the predictions. So, let's get started, actually. Let's start with all the for sure, no matter what you do, you could shoot somebody. They're going to be a safe Republican or safe Democrat seat. Let's start. Alright, so, of course, all of these states are not going to be competitive. It's quite clear. Iowa is not going to be competitive whatsoever. Ohio, DeWine's going to win by 15 points. Now, he's not a good candidate, but he's just going to win by so much, it's not even a matter. Also, the states of New Hampshire, Vermont, because, you know, the freaking Phil Scott and, you know, Chris Sununu types, they are up there. So these states are kind of for sure, no matter what you do, these states are safe Republican. Now, Democrats, there are a couple of states that definitely safe Democrat. California, Hawaii, Maryland, New York. Again, with New York, I've just not seen anything that really points to this race being within 10 points. There was a chance earlier, earlier in the cycle that, hey, there's a chance Republicans could maybe, get within 10 here. I really don't see it, especially with the fact that there's really no independent candidate here. There's really just nothing. So New York is safe Democrat. Massachusetts, of course, because, well, it's Massachusetts. So that's the for sure, no matter what you do, you can shoot somebody. They're safe Republican or safe Democrat seats. There are a couple other safe seats I'm going to put in. The first one is Colorado. There were a couple polls that did come out that say, hey, Republicans could potentially be within, 10 points here. Look, Trafalgar, you guys are a pretty good pollster, but just stop. That's not going to happen. It's not going to be within 5 points like you claim it is. Plus, you'd even poll, all the candidates. There's a constitutional candidate. There's a libertarian candidate. When you count for that, Republicans, that alone pushes it, kind of outside of the realm of within 10 points. Now, technically, it's possible Palos wins by like 9.9 points. But I think it's going to be safe Democrat come this fall. I'm also going to put Texas and Florida into it. Texas it's not going to be close. It's not going to be close whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure Abbott's actually overperforming his polling margin from last time already. So that's a good sign if I'm not mistaken. And the polls that, we do have, they're from, the University of Tyler. They're not that good. YouGov. And they show the race almost, a safe margin. That's all you need to know about Texas. Florida, kind of the same deal. I mean, Charlie Crisp, he's running a disastrous campaign already. I mean, he's telling DeSantis supporters, go F yourselves, and all that stuff. That's not going to work in a state where Biden or DeSantis has an approval rating of like 55%. So that's kind of that for the safe states for each party. Now, there are a couple states that you would think would be safe, but they're not for reasons. So let's start. Let us start with the likely, or you know what? Instead of that, let's go northeast coast to west coast. Let's change it up a little bit. So let us start in the great state of Maine. Now, obviously, LePage is, the Republican candidate here. That is why there's a serious shot Republicans do end up potentially pulling it off in Maine. Now, will they? This is a tough one. This is a tough one to predict. Now, the polling in Maine has been atrocious the past couple of years. But even then, it's still, most polls have, this race close. Even then, This is a tough one because it's such a weird state. The polling's usually not that good in. But for now, I'm still going to have to put this tilt Democrat. It's going to be a very close race in my opinion. I just want to see something more from like Trafalgar or something like that, or Emerson, something. Not, just a Democrat pollster. I really want to see something. Again, Maine's a weird state politically, but I think for now, a tilt Democrat in Maine, it's kind of reasonable. I just want to see something more, right? That's all. I could see the argument for it being, a Republican state. But for now, it is an incumbent. I'll just have it tilt Democrat for now. Now, Rhode Island. This is an interesting one. This is a situation where it 100% depends if the incumbent wins his primary or not. This is a weird one. Usually, if the incumbent wins his primary, he's usually in, kind of in a good situation. Here's the thing. If the incumbent Democrat actually wins this race, he could be in big trouble. This is a race that I think a lot of people are underestimating. Now, if Dan McKee, that's the Democratic incumbent, ends up winning, the primary, he's going to potentially lose that race. If it's anybody else, I think it's going to be a safe Democrat state. But for now, based on polling I have seen, McKee is barely ahead. So we'll make the argument say it's likely Democrat based on the fact he's not that popular there. Republicans actually have a decent candidate there for once, from what I heard. Or actually, no. Do they? I don't even want to know at this point. My point is, Republicans, have a shot here in Rhode Island. If McKee somehow, magically wins the primary, I'll have it within 10 points for now, but probably for the October edition, it's probably going to be safe Democrat. We just got to see. Connecticut. I'm disappointed in this one. I am 100% disappointed in Stefanowski. I truly thought he was going to win this cycle. Now, I really don't think he's going to win. As of now, he's not running a good campaign at all. And you look at it, it appears he's finally starting to talk about issues that matter to voters. But it's not looking too good for him. And I know the polling here has not been the most. I mean, the most reliable poll we got here was from Emerson, and that was back in May. But either way, I think Stefanowski, I think, is going to, lose, 3 to 4 points as of now. Could he still win this? Absolutely. He is changing his messaging a little bit. So there is a shot that Stefanowski ends up winning. Now, Pennsylvania. Shapiro made a big mistake. He made a big mistake by, shilling for, Mastriano. I think Republicans win this race easily. I mean, Richard Barris released a poll today that showed, hey, Shapiro is only up by, 0.5%, I think it was, ended up being. That's terrible, considering the fact that, Shapiro should have the most name recognition in that race, and, he's an incumbent statewide official. The fact he's at 44% and basically tied with Mastriano, and you look at what's left for undecided voters, it's working class voters. Yeah, my opinion is this. Mastriano, I think, has that race. I think he's going to win by like 3 to 4 points. And I think that's going to help Oz a little bit. That's why I think Oz still wins, end of the day. Just Mastriano's surging right now. And the remaining undecided voters from most polls I've seen are working class voters. Those voters are going to break for Mastriano. It's a matter of how much, but I do think as of now, Mastriano ends up winning. Georgia, that's not going to be close. Georgia, I just don't really see anything happening there. I mean, Kemp's going to win by 5-6 points. Even the polls are starting to admit that, yeah, he's going to win. Now, he's not going to win by 15 like some of these polls claim, but he's going to win by 5 to 6 points. Like I said, Stacey Abrams really botched it with this campaign. She really screwed it up. I mean, I told everybody that she was not going to win. And while I'm not the biggest fan of Kemp, hope he does end up winning, and he has gotten better the past couple of years. Or I should say couple months or so. So, yeah. Michigan. This is another one of those races that it's going to come down to the wire. Trafalgar came off a poll that Tudor Dixon's down by 4. You got a couple other polls that show this race fairly close. This is a tough one. And for an incumbent, again, Whitmer's not performing as good as an incumbent should be, especially an incumbent governor. That's not usually a good sign when you're barely above 50%. I mean, the highest I think she ever pulled was 51% this cycle, and she's been going down and down and down very subtly, but she's under 50% now, and Tudor Dixon's kind of surging. But for now, this is a tough one. I think that right now, I think Whitmer ends up winning by a very close margin, but Dixon is starting to pick it up a little bit. We just got to see what happens. That's my opinion in Michigan. Now, Illinois, it's not going to be safe Democrat, but this is a weird one. The reason I'm saying that Republicans do have a shot here is based on the polling I have seen. Bailey is surprisingly doing very good with independent voters. We saw in the primary that he actually did pretty good in the, Chicago area. That was not expected. Everybody thought he was not going to do great there. While he didn't do as good as, Southern Illinois, he still won that region. It was a surprising revelation. So I think it's going to be within 10 points. I still think the prick wins. But yeah, Wisconsin, that's just, no. Tony Evers is going to lose by like 4 to 5 points. And, even the polling is starting to admit that Evers is in big trouble. He is in big trouble. Trafalgar has it tied already. I mean, you got a bunch of polls from Fox has it within the margin of error. You account for that, that's like a 4 or 5 point victory for Michaels. Not really saying much. Potentially likely, it's borderline. You could flip it between lean or likely Republican. Minnesota. Originally I thought, okay, this was a likely Democrat state. I liked Jensen, but I just didn't see it. Then I realized there's a bunch of weed parties in Minnesota that ran a bunch of candidates. And these weed parties in Minnesota, they're not some schleps that, get 1% of the vote. They get like 7-8% of the vote at times. And you look at some of the polling, they have the race with potentially within the margin of error without including, marijuana parties. There's a lot of them in Minnesota. There's 2 major ones. And when you include them, this race is very competitive. But to give the benefit of the doubt for the incumbent, I still just want to see some polling that actually includes the weed candidates because they're a big part of Minnesota elections. From what we've seen, they're a big part. They usually get a big chunk of the vote, surprisingly. But for now, I think Jensen, loses by like 2 to 3 points. It gets closer, but the Waldo still barely wins. Kansas, look, I don't care what Nate Plastic says. That's not really going to be close. Yes, Laura Kelly is running a decent campaign there, but Derek Schmidt's going to win. He's going to win by like 5 to 6 points. Just stop it. Just stop it. New Mexico. Ooh. This is my opinion. This is a hot take. I know a lot of people are pissed off. I still think Ron Chetty wins. Look, this gut feeling I have is Ron Chetty's going to pull it off this cycle. He only lost by 5 points in 2020. That's without funding. This time he actually is getting some kind of funding, and well, I think he has a serious shot of winning there, and I think he will, end of the day, win. I mean, the governor there is not too popular. I mean, Grisham has a bunch of scandals, and the polling is even indicating that Ron Chetty is actually doing pretty good. And again, Grisham's pulling under 50, even 47%. She's pulling under 47. That's never a good sign for an incumbent governor. Never, ever, ever. Barring, it's a state with tremendously bad polling for one party, like Wisconsin. This is a state like New Mexico where the polling's usually accurate. So New Mexico, I think tilt Republican is a favorable thing. So there is a shot here. Republicans should spend money here. Arizona. Even people are on the left are starting to admit that Katie Hobbs lost. That's kind of one of those things I told people. Katie Hobbs is not a strong candidate. And, somebody like Carrie Lake's going to win easily. She's going to win by 4 to 5 points. And a lot of people are starting to realize that after, Hobbs is refusing to debate. And she only won because of a blue wave. And she ran against a nobody. That's the only reason she won. Nevada, Joe Lombardo's going to win. It's going to be close, but I do think he ends up, end of the day, he ends up carrying the state of Nevada. The polling's even indicating, again, Nevada, historically has oversampled Republicans, But even in 2020, it heavily oversampled Democrats. So I think as of now, Nevada is tilt Republican for now, all right? The polls are starting to indicate it. Trafalgar's showing it. Even some crappy polls that heavily oversampled Democrats showing Nevada's going to be Republican. And again, I have a tilt R because Nevada, outside of 2020, has been a bit of a, Republican-leaning state polling-wise. I mean, they said Trump was going to win Nevada by a point or so in 2016. He lost by, I think it was 3. So yeah, Nevada is tilt R. Oregon. Democrats are in big trouble here. They are in massive trouble. They picked crappy candidate. They probably picked the worst possible candidate for the state of Oregon. Republicans have a solid candidate here. And you have an independent candidate, Betsy Johnson, who we have data to prove that she is shafting the Democrats. She is getting a big chunk of that Democrat vote. So that is why I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, red Oregon, yeah. Look, this is a governorship, all right? You have a major third-party candidate, and the Democrats did not pick a good candidate whatsoever here. Oregon, I think for the governorship, as of now, we even have polling to show that Republicans are winning this race right now, and the only polls that show otherwise are, internals for, Betsy Johnson or Tina Kotek. So, I think Oregon's tilt R. The governorship, I think, it's going to be very close. There's a serious shot that Johnson, actually gets within the margin of error. But for now, I think that Republicans barely, end of the day, take the Oregon governorship. Alaska. Now, traditionally, I thought this was a safe Republican state, but after the mess we saw with the ranked choice voting, the only reason this is going to be likely Republican is because the chaos the ranked choice voting has done to the state of Alaska. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. But the the ranked choice voting had some weird results, and it's I still think, the Republicans are going to win there by 9 points. But you have some weird candidates. You have a former governor running. It's you got a Democrat in there. It's a weird system. I do think Alaska's still borderline safe. But yeah, this, folks, is my current prediction for the gubernatorial races. There are a couple toss-ups, obviously. Michigan, New Mexico, Nevada, Oregon, Maine, etc. They're kind of the main toss-ups. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit the little bell, and yes, of course, go follow the mysterious Twitter account in the description down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Godspeed to all of you.